This cast, I'm sure you realize, is an insane and glorious assortment of humans.
We actually got a sneak peek, a little early FaceTime, and she's freaky. In a good way.
My head just burst right off my shoulders.
She had a moment.
I did.
I'm Chris Hamill, president of Gateway Film Center. Welcome to the Columbus premiere of Jim Jarmusch's The Dead Don't Die. Now, you're also at a Fright Club screening. If you have been here before, welcome back. If you haven't, it's really awesome that we get to host the Fright Club folks every second Wednesday, where they typically screen a film from the past that maybe you haven't seen, and you get to see it for the first time on the big screen. This month, they pulled off this really cool The Dead Don't Die screening, so it's pretty awesome. They're also, if you've never heard the podcast is nominated for the best podcast in Columbus. And, you should clap. And they'll find out at the Columbus Podcast Awards, which will be right here in August, so stay tuned for more information about that. One of the really great things about getting to have a film center and getting to be in my job is you get to meet people like Hope and George. And if you haven't met them yet, you should do that tonight while you're here. And if you have met them, you know as well as I do that they are two amazing human beings, and you should clap really loud for them right now. Tell them how much you love them. Also, it's because of them you got this screening. Without further ado, Hope and George.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you.
For everybody coming out. We're so excited about this. We know you are too. As Chris said, we usually do an underseen horror gem, 99.9% of the time chosen by Hope. I just stay out of the way, which is a good idea. But this month, thanks to Cicely from the Owens Group,
Woohoo!
We got the chance to host the premiere of The Dead Don't Die, and we are so geeked about it because how many times have you been watching this trailer?
Every single day. I watch this trailer every day just to make myself happy when he goes, ghouls. I'm just so happy.
It does. It makes you happy. So this is going to be one where usually it's not many people have seen it. This time it's nobody has seen it, which is great.
So that's exciting.
And we also, because of that, had to find, we usually, if you haven't been to Fright Club before, we usually work on a theme. The top 5 Satans in horror movie or what have you.
Yes, we've done
but
that.
this time we had to say, okay, what theme could we pick to go along with The Dead Don't Die? And what did we come up with?
This cast, I'm sure you realize, is an insane and glorious assortment of humans. But one of the things that I thought was super cool about this cast from the beginning is that they've almost all been in a bunch of horror movies, right? Danny Glover is in this movie. Obviously, he's in Saw. Carol Kane is in this movie. She's the one who says, Chardonnay, right? She's from the original When a Stranger Calls. Of course, Tom Waits is in it. He was Renfield in Dracula. Mm-hmm. Iggy Pop is in it, and I love him. Also, he's in a couple. He's in one called Suck and one called Gutter Damarong. I bet none of you have seen either of those, and they're no good. So there you go.
So they won't be making the list tonight.
They will not.
I think that's a spoiler.
They will not. But everybody, so many of the people in this film have been in really great horror movies that we love. And a couple of them actually are a little bit underseen as well. So we get to kind of stick with our regular theme of highlighting movies you should see.
But they're all great. And before we get to that, before we get to our top 5, we do want to say, if you didn't know, that there's a special guest coming to Gateway this weekend. And her name is Annabelle. The Annabelle doll from the Annabelle movies is going to be right here watching with you, if you come, hopefully, on Saturday afternoon. The Lost Boys, part of Horror 101, is going to be showing. And Annabelle is going to be here watching with you. And then after, going to have a little happy hour, a little hang time with Annabelle.
That's right.
So if you want to get some more information about that, on the way out, we've got some flyers down here for you. But
that's right.
Do not miss, because we actually got a sneak peek, a little early FaceTime, and she's freaky. In a good way.
And actually, I was realizing, looking at her, that if I braided my hair and put on a white dress, I would be alarmingly similar in looks to Annabelle, and I'm feeling kind of bad about myself now, to be honest with you.
And maybe we'll do that in private. Boom, chicka, boom, boom, boom. Did I say that out loud?
You did.
Is this mic on? All right. Okay, so we want to get to it. We've got a top 5 best horror movies from this cast. As it's been called, the best cast ever disassembled, and that is hard to argue with. You want to get rolling?
I do.
I know we want to get rolling. Let's go to number 5. It's a shy student trying to reach family in where? Ohio. A gun-toting tough guy trying to find the last Twinkie and a pair of sisters trying to get to an amusement park, joining forces in Zombieland with Bill Murray.
Need more, how do you do it? Just give me a little hint.
In the words of the immortal philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre, au revoir, good friend.
Okay.
So that was the great after credit scene.
That was,
with
yeah.
Bill Murray. But the best news about that is, and I saw somebody's here has a double tap T-shirt on tonight. Zombieland Double Tap is coming out this October.
That's right. The 10th anniversary. Can you believe it's
Yes.
been 10 years since Zombieland? I find that crazy.
So-
and it's the same cast, same writers. They wrote the Deadpool films as well. Same director who has actually sucked except for Zombieland, but everything else, I think he's going to get his mojo back.
Yeah, and this was actually, depending on different accounts that you read, Bill Murray was kind of a last-second
supposed to be
choice.
Joe Pesci.
And I think at one point it was supposed to be Patrick Swayze.
Oh.
Depending on different accounts, but it was a last-minute call. I think Woody Harrelson said, well, I can get Dustin Hoffman and or Bill Murray on the phone, and the producers were like, yes and yes, and they got Bill Murray, and it come down, and that's got to be one of the best cameos ever.
Oh, absolutely. I remember when we reviewed this movie, and I wouldn't, at that time I didn't say who the cameo was, but I just said, if Jesus showed up in a zombie movie, it wouldn't have been a better cameo. And I stand by that.
That's a hot take.
It is a hot take.
That is a hot take. And while we're talking about Zombieland and Woody Harrelson, and we're here at the Ohio State University, we have to pour one out for Woody, who back in the day got arrested right here.
Who hasn't?
But who hasn't gone on to star in Zombieland?
That's right. Not me.
I think the charge was disorderly conduct, but if you look it up, all he was doing was dancing in the street, which, I mean, that happens on a random Tuesday, and nobody's getting arrested. This one, it's funny because it came out of an idea that originally was for a TV show.
Right.
That would feature the zombie kill of the week, which actually I like that
absolutely.
as a TV series.
Yeah. So let's hope that, again, that this cast and these writers really can elevate his work in the
for
in the
Zombieland
sequel.
Double Tap.
That's right.
Looking forward to that. So that is number 5 on our The Dead Don't Die cast list for favorite horror as we move up to number 4. And this one's from 2013. It's a depressed musician reuniting with his lover, only lovers left alive, and Tilda Swinton.
What is it? You look tired. Can't you tell your wife what your problem is?
It's the way they treat the world.
And now they've succeeded in contaminating their own blood, never mind their water.
You're looking awfully pale there, Dr. Caligari.
Is that the really good stuff?
Precisely.
What is that?
Oh, negative.
Well, the first thing I always remember about this movie is when it first came out, they had a critic screening, and Hope was out of town. And so I got to see it, 2 weeks before you did. And man, did she take that out on me bad.
Yeah, I was unhappy.
I could not bring it up at all.
No.
Touchy.
No, I was really unhappy about it.
But it's so great. And of course, it is Jim Jarmusch as well.
It is. So this is Jim Jarmusch's first horror film. And I remember at the time thinking, yes, please. But also I'm like, vampires, really? Which is kind of the same reaction I had when I saw the first trailer for The Dead Don't Die. I'm like, he's making zombies right now. But the thing is like, there's nothing he can't do gloriously, you know? This movie, the Only Lovers Left Alive, everything about it was so just perfect. The casting was perfect. Tilda Swinton and Tom Hiddleston, who play Eve and Adam. And she's in Marrakesh, but she needs to go fly and find him because he's very depressed and he's living naturally in Detroit. And it's this whole love story set in Detroit, and just... it's so well organized. It's so well put together. It's so glorious to look at, which you can tell from that trailer.
Yeah.
I just think that everything about it was, and it's like we didn't realize in advance that Tilda Swinton was the coolest person left on the planet. This movie was like, no, totally. That's totally the case.
And of course, if you watch the TV show, What We Do in the Shadows, she just reprised this role along with a lot of other very famous vampires here in the last few weeks, which is great.
That's right.
Because she looks in that episode pretty much exactly what she looks like here.
Yeah, and Paul Rubens is also in that episode, and he's just like he was in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And to have Paul Rubens and Tilda Swinton on the same screen, my head just burst right off my shoulders.
She had a moment.
I did.
And but if I remember, the other thing I remember about this movie is that it was right in the middle of Twilight fever, which was great because other movies were trying to take shots at the Twilight phenomenon at the time, but this one did it so well, especially the ending.
Oh,
Just was so pitch perfect the way it handled vampires and the whole vampire lore.
Yeah.
And as you said, it looks fantastic. Just that shot that they show in the trailer, the spiraling camera that he does a few times. I love the way the whole thing is shot. Detroit or no, it looks great. And like you said, what can the Tilda? Because for heretofore, we just call her the Tilda.
Yeah.
Can't do. This is fantastic.
Well, and the truth is, I kicked around. I mean, we could do a whole podcast on the Tilda. And one of the ones we're not going to really talk a lot about, though, that I debated putting on the list, but I don't think technically it's a horror film, is we need to talk about Kevin, which is borderline horror anyway. It's certainly horrific to watch. And is a brilliant movie, and is Tilda Swinton's performance, and we need to talk about Kevin, is, as far as I'm concerned, the best piece of acting I have ever seen. I've never seen a better performance in my life than Tilda Swinton in that movie.
But you're right, it's not a horror movie, but it is so horrific, it's so hard to watch. I mean, I recommended it to a friend of mine who watched it and then wanted to punch me in the face. Because it will just rip your soul out.
It does. It really does.
Good Lord, it's good. But
so that's advertising. Check it out, for real.
Why isn't that our quote on a movie poster? It will rip your soul out. Go see it. So, but we're getting off the track. Number 4 on our list tonight is Only Lovers Left Alive, another one from Jim Jarmusch and Tilda Swinton. That's number 4. As we move up to number 3, speaking of the Tilda, and we always should be, a darkness swirls at the center of a world-renowned dance company. Yeah, I know, you know. From last year, Suspiria.
When you dance the dance of another, you make yourself in the image of its creator. You empty yourself so that her work can live within you. Do you understand?
Yeah.
You're in a company now. You have to find your right place. You have to decide. What is it you want to be for this company? Is it the head? The spine? The sex? The heart?
The hands. I want to be this company's hands.
Luca Guadagnino had some big shoes to fill. I mean, that was the cojones saying, I'm going to remake Suspiria. And George is not a giant fan of the original. I do like the original quite a bit, but we both agree that this is better.
Oh, I think it's way, way better. I think it adds so much to it. And even now, especially when it first came out, but even now, I'll stumble across discussions on certain horror movie boards or whatever, and I'm really interested going back and forth between the camps. I mean, the people that just don't like this at all, which is fine. I mean, you like what you like. But I think this one is so much better than the original. Because at the time, I think in interviews, the Tilda said it was just like it was a cover version, which
right.
I think that fits. It's not
too.
A straight remake
no.
because it adds at least an hour running time, and it adds so much more heft to the story, I think, that makes it so much more meaningful. And a lot of people pointed out, the colors, the color scheme.
Yeah.
But I think that was obviously a conscious choice to make it different, and I totally respect that.
One of the things that I found interesting when the movie came out was how many people said it was not a horror film.
Yeah.
And I thought, did you see that same dance? That dance where her whole jaw winds up in the back of her head? And there's more blood in that final sequence than in the entirety of the Halloween remake, which was, I think we'll all agree, a horror movie.
Yeah.
So that really surprised me a lot. And I thought Dakota Johnson was very good.
Yep.
I thought the whole cast was very good, but Tilda just owned it.
And of course, speaking of the cast, Tilda played multiple roles.
She did play. She played 3 roles, and it was fun. I watched it late after it came out. I watched it with my twin sister, who is actually a dancer choreographer. And Pina Bausch is her hero, and that's who Tilda Swinton patterned her character after. And then our niece, my oldest niece, who is also a dancer. So it was exciting to watch it with them so that I could, for the only time ever, watch a dance performance and feel superior to them because they were like, ah! I'm like, I've seen it. It's fine. That's Tilda Swinton, by the way. Can you believe it?
Yeah, and they tried, the fact that one of the roles she plays, of course, is the doctor.
Yeah.
And they tried to keep that under wraps as much as they could. And they even, gave
him a name.
Right.
The actor.
Because I think they felt that the movie is so feminine-based and so based on motherhood and things like that as much as they could, they had females play all the roles. And as you've pointed out before when we've discussed this movie, the males that are in the cast and in the movie are not just mocked, they're toyed with by all the females in power.
Right. And it's funny because if you were just to think of a film off the top of your head where the females in the film really weren't treated as fully human beings, right? I mean, it's not hard to come up with. And it's not necessarily even a bad thing, you know? Glengarry Glen Ross is a great movie. There's not a female in the entire film. But I thought it was really fascinating to maybe for the first time watch a movie where the males, the ones who were played by men, really were insignificant and to a certain degree, they were toyed with. Their sexuality was mocked. Their bodies were sort of objectified in a disrespectful way. Not in a way that I think that the film was a man-hating film at all. It was simply the idea that these characters had no need for men whatsoever. And I think that it was also interesting. It's not as if they were all noble. They really weren't. Some of them were super bad people. And it's not as if they were really trying to say anything like women are great. It was just this fascinating sort of microcosmos where that's all that mattered to these people were what other women had to say and had to think and what they were doing. And I don't think that that's an uncommon thing to see in any film among men. I don't think it's uncommon at all. I love the film The Revenant. I love that movie so much. But there's one dead woman in it, and then there's one other woman who is raped repeatedly. And other than that, it's all men in the movie. Doesn't mean it's not and the bear. The bear might have been a mama, so she was pretty badass. She was.
That bear, man.
Yeah.
Hell of an actor.
It's just fun. It was just fun to see a film where that was kind of tipped on its head.
Yeah, and there's so many themes going on in this movie that it's one of those that really begs repeated viewings and repeated discussion. And that's why I've kind of peeked in on a lot of these online discussions about it just to get other people's takes, because I find it very fascinating when a movie that I love so much and thought it was so superior to the original just disagrees completely. Sometimes they have good reasoning behind it. I just don't agree with it.
Right. Well, the original is a much beloved movie. It really is.
I know.
So, and this is a very, very different film.
Yeah, and it just added a lot to it. And of course, three or four aspects of that is the Tilda's performance in Suspiria. And that is number 3 in our top 5 movies, of the horror movies, the cast of The Dead Don't Die. And let's move it up to number 2. This is one we've talked about. If you're a Fright Club listener, a Fright Clubber, trademark, you've heard us talk about this one a lot. It's a wealthy New York City investment banking executive, Patrick Bateman, hiding his alternate psychopathic ego from his co-workers, Chloe Sevigny in American Psycho.
Jean,
Yes, Patrick?
would you like to accompany me to dinner? That is, if you're not doing anything.
No, I don't have any plans.
Listen, where should we go?
Anywhere you want.
Let's not think about what I want. How about anywhere you want?
What about Dorsia?
Oh, how I love this movie. As I've mentioned most of the time that we've talked about this, every time, it's one of those movies that if it's on a cable, whatever it might be on, even if it's the edited version, and I'm flipping channels, I'm stopping, I'm watching it, and it's funnier every time.
It is. It's just the most perfect sort of spiteful look at the 80s.
Yeah.
And of course, Christian Bale is perfection in this role. And it is so, I had to kill a lot of people today. Just makes me laugh so hard every time. But what I think is interesting, particularly Chloe Sevigny is the one who's in this film, and she and Cara Seymour. Cara Seymour plays the prostitute that comes back a second time because she's just not thinking clearly.
Right.
And the two of them are so vulnerable and tender that it would be easy with the rest of the cast, who are mostly superficial and horrible people. It would be very easy with that cast.
Tom's leaving. He has reservations at Dorsia. How did you get a table? I'm sorry.
That's okay. that with the rest of the cast, with the rest of the characters, it would be very easy to just see this as a black comedy and just kind of root for people to kill other people. And what I think was really fascinating about Chloe Sevigny's character and also Cara Seymour's character is that suddenly you think these are like real humans. These are nice people, and you really hope that he's not going to put that nail through the back of her head, and he's not going to drop that chainsaw on her, although you do kind of wish he would drop the chainsaw because he looked so good in this movie.
It's interesting, though, Chloe Sevigny was the only one, from what I've read, of the cast to make it from when it was, because for a while it was attached to Oliver Stone.
Yeah.
Mary Herron dropped out because they wanted Leonardo DiCaprio
yeah.
to play Patrick Bateman, and she was dead set against that. She wanted Christian Bale, of course. So then when it switched for a while, Oliver Stone had an entirely different cast set up, but Chloe was still playing Jean, which she made it over to the other cast as well. And she actually brought not only some interest, but a little bit of background, because apparently her brother did at the time, or may still work on Wall Street, and he may or may not be a psycho, but it's such a time capsule movie. I mean,
can you imagine if Oliver Stone had made this movie? I'd have been subtle, wouldn't it? That'd have been a subtle film.
I mean, I think judging on some of the speeches that they show on TV from Reagan in the movie, I think they pinpointed it to be taking place, I think maybe 88, 87 or 88,
that
something
sounds
like
right,
that.
because it was already the downslide for some of the middle-of-the-road bands that he likes to listen to so much. So,
but it's such a perfect time capsule
It is.
of that late 80s period. And I didn't read the book, but apparently the Mary Harron's take on it is even more bloody and sadistic than the book is, which is, good for her.
yeah. Yeah, she wrote it. I mean, she adapted the screenplay, she directed it, and she had a very clear vision. I mean, there is not an image out of place. And we've said this before, but my favorite thing about this movie is that she filmed all of the scenes with Willem Dafoe 3 times. She filmed them, he's the detective. She filmed them once as if he had no idea what was going on, once as if he was sure Patrick Bateman was a murderer, and once as if he was sure Patrick Bateman was not the murderer. And then she just shuffled which one she used from scene to scene. And that is just absolutely genius. And it's not like Willem Dafoe is not automatically a weirdo on screen. He totally is. But he's so much more that in this, because you're like, what is the deal with this guy?
Yeah.
Well, and that's why.
Yeah, it's great. Just love it so much.
We love it so much that we're going to show it in December. It is our December Fright Club.
Merry Christmas.
That's right. It was Merry Christmas to George, because he was complaining that we never show anything anybody's ever seen.
Yeah, I stomped my feet. I held my breath and said, "Can I pick one? Can I pick one?" And I did get one. So, yeah, that is number 2 on our Fright Club list tonight. So, before we get to number 1, we had a lot of people at the happy hour eyeing some T-shirts and saying, how do we get ourselves a T-shirt? Well, the cool thing is we want to give them away right now. We put a little card that said winner under some seats. So if you want to check your seat right now, a few people have won some T-shirts for The Dead Don't Die. You got one up there in the top? Yeah. You want to thank Cicely for that. She brought all the swag.
That's
she
right.
brought on the T-shirts.
Thank you, Cicely.
So if you got, where are they? We got all our winners? All right. Look at you. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. Derek, we had nothing to do with this. Old man Spencer, we didn't know.
There's going to be bloodshed
Unbelievable, this guy.
in this theater. This guy. But Cicely's getting the T-shirt, so thank you. We got the 6th one. Was there 5?
So, yeah, there's a total of 6. So there's 2 still out there. Look under other people's seats. There are 2 T-shirts still out there.
Well, and then I think the last one, aren't we going to have like a battle royale to the death?
Yeah.
All right, so she went to get the shirt, so congratulations to the winners. And we got to move on. We got a movie to watch here in just a few minutes. So let's get to number 1 on our list of horror movies from the cast of The Dead Don't Die. And this is a young African-American visiting his white girlfriend's parents for the weekend. Of course, Caleb Landry Jones in Get Out.
So, Chris, what's your sport? Football? Baseball?
Basketball, mostly, I guess.
You an MMA fan?
Dude, what? What?
Hey, Jeremy, why don't we let someone else have the floor for a second?
You're dating my sister, right? He's dating my sister. You had your chance. I can't get to know the guy.
Caleb Landry Jones actually has been in a ton of horror movies, and one of them is Byzantium, which I like a lot. And I really wanted the Run Rabbit Run scene for this, but you can't tell it's him because he's got that thing on his face. But that scene creeps me out in the worst way. That song is super creepy.
I'm glad you brought that scene up, because this is another movie that just begs so much discussion over and over. It's so great. It's so brilliant. But there are scenes like that call back, because you remember when they're having the dinner, when he first comes over to the house.
Yes.
And they're playing around about, play fighting and martial arts and things like that. And they says he was just about to put you in a headlock. And then if you remember in that's a callback to that first scene where he put him in the headlock, but you couldn't see it was him. And it's the same way in the another one of the callback scenes, kind of the subtle brilliant scenes in this movie is when they get pulled over early by the cop, and Rose makes such a deal about not needing to see his ID because he wasn't driving, which at the time you take in a totally different way because you think, well, it's because he's a racist cop and she's standing up for him.
Well, he's still a racist cop.
He is still a racist cop.
But she's not standing up for him.
Exactly.
She's trying to make sure that there's no record of the fact that he's
cover her
out
tracks,
here.
which you see it in a totally different context later.
What are you saying, that Jordan Peele is a genius?
I'm saying that this is such a well-written and well-directed movie. It has so many layers to it, and that's just a couple of the little scenes that you can pick out later and talk about, and this invites so much discussion. Love it. But, yeah, he's a guy. In fact, just in that year alone, in 2017, he was in this. He was in American Made, 3 Billboards, and The Florida Project.
I know. Yeah. He's in everything, and he's always really good, and he's got a tremendous amount of range. And one of the things I love the most about this film is that it's already very uncomfortable, this meeting with the mom and the dad, and they're talking, I'd have voted for Obama a 3rd time, and it's very an uncomfortable thing until he shows up. And then it's a whole other level of like, oh, this is so creepy racist. I can't get over that this is happening. And I think that's when you recognize it's not like we thought the visit was going to go well, but it's when he shows up that you recognize something so sinister is afoot. This is just going to go terribly. I think that the scene right here, which is a weird thing to point out, like to somebody's death scene, I love the noise he makes, and I love the way he shakes on the floor. I just think he's really committed. I like when somebody really is all in when they're getting murdered by somebody else.
That's important.
It is. I think so.
So that is number 1, Get Out, on our list of horror movies from the cast of The Dead Don't Die, which we are going to see here in just a few minutes. Who's excited for this premiere? Oh, this is so much fun. And keep in mind, if you came in late, Fright Club, we do it right here once a month, the second Wednesday of every month here at the Gateway Film Center. We show usually an underseen gem that you did have a chance to see but didn't, and talk about it and have a lot of fun and have some drinks and have a great time kind of just coming together, as we love to do here at the Gateway, and our love of horror movies. So this podcast should be live on Monday, all the usual places that you get podcasts, or you can always find it on our website, which is madwolf.com. And we love to keep the horror conversation going, as we always do. You can find us on Twitter. That's easy. We're at Fright Club Pod.
And if you do have the opportunity to come back out next month, we are showing the film We Are the Flesh, which is quite an event.
I mean, look at that face.
Right. Just if you haven't seen the film, just to give you a sense, our podcast topic is going to be body fluids. Body fluids and horror is our podcast topic. Please come back out. Bring a towel.
And bring a towel. And there are plenty of body fluids in this movie. So we hope to see you back then. Can't thank you enough for coming out tonight. Congratulations to all of our prize winners. Everybody that got one of those super cool coffee mugs.
Oh, my God, yeah.
With the hot and the cold, that's sweet. And the T-shirts, again, thanks to Cicely from the Owens Group for setting this up for us. Don't forget, Annabelle is going to be here on Saturday watching The Lost Boys with you and then having a little happy hour photo op thing. And thanks to Chris and everybody at the Gateway, as always. So who's ready to see The Dead Don't Die? Yeah. All right. Until next time, she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And this is the Fright Club Podcast. Yay! Thank you so much.
1 hour and 45 minutes later.
Well, that was fun.
It was fun. And even though it did make the official list, because we hadn't seen it yet, I think that we should cover it.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about it. We've just seen The Dead Don't Die, and no spoilers whatsoever. But
it's funny.
It is funny. It's a lot of fun. And, it definitely has some social commentary about it. But for anybody that's forgotten, and people that listen to this podcast probably have not forgotten, you go back to the beginning of zombie movies, and it was very much a political statement.
Oh, absolutely.
Very much.
If you start with the living dead zombies, not the old sort of voodoo zombies, but
right.
Romero zombies. And there are many, many, many odes to Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Romero, generally speaking, throughout this movie. But it's funny because they're just odes to everything, to nerds, to horror nerds, to sci-fi nerds, it's such a loving, let's just nerd out now kind of a movie.
I tried to catch as many as I could, but then as I was watching the final credits go, and of course they give all the thanks and all the there were a lot I missed. A lot I
Yeah,
missed.
it's one of the things about the movie. There are so many in-jokes and visuals and things. You just need to watch it repeatedly. You just really do.
And and it's going to be one of those ones that's quotable.
Oh,
I mean,
my goodness,
I'm already, before we saw it, we were doing ghouls. But now it's going to be dead hipsters. I think it's going to be my new favorite quote.
Dead hipsters from Cleveland.
Yeah, exactly. It's really, it's just so deadpan through the whole thing.
It really is.
The interplay between the characters, especially between Bill Murray
and Adam Driver. Oh my God, hilarious!
And
then everything that Tilda does.
The Tilda is fantastic, and her character has quite a twist that you probably won't see coming.
Probably not.
I know I didn't.
No.
But we're certainly not going to spoil that. But it's really, I think that I could see this one. Jim Jarmusch, he's niche-y.
Well, here's what I was thinking the whole time watching it is that this is the first outright comedy Jim Jarmusch has ever made. Now he's got the Coffee and Cigarettes movies have comedic bursts in them, but when you watch a Jim Jarmusch film, any of them, you don't think to yourself, laugh riot, but for a comedy, it's a very Jim Jarmusch movie.
Yeah, it is, and not only will I think it could be. It's very quotable from the first viewing, but I could see this one really getting a cult following.
Yeah, I think so too.
I really do, because it's got the zombie basics. I mean,
Sure.
there are zombies, there are flesh eating,
Sure.
and things like that. But it has that deadpan comedy. It has some fourth wall stuff.
Yeah.
That is maybe different from a lot of fourth wall stuff. We're being very careful not to say anything, but I think especially if you are fans of horror, obviously that you are because you're listening to this podcast, you're going to like this. And I'm really going to be interested to see, like we were talking before, about how the horror community reacts to certain movies.
Yeah.
I'm really going to be interested to see the reaction to this movie because I thought it was a gas.
Oh, yeah. I thought it was incredibly funny. But, not certainly a quick pace.
No.
I mean, it takes its time. It's a lackadaisical. But that's the thing. Everything about it, from the pacing to the delivery, is just so deadpan, like you said.
Yeah, and the tone. He sets a tone from the beginning, and that's the tone.
Yep.
And I do think it works. And it's funny because we talked about the next Fright Club Live, which is going to be We Are the Flesh, but we didn't mention the next Fright Club, the next one we do in the studio, is going to be, since look at the calendar,
right?
It's almost half a year is over, so that means it's time to count down our top 10 so far this year in horror movies.
That's right.
And I know there's a good chance we might be talking about this one later.
I think we might.
So that's going to be the next studio Fright Club, but we're jumping the gun here a little bit. So I'll tell you what, it was such a great time. We had such a great crowd, probably the biggest that we've ever had.
Yeah, well, they put us in the big room.
The big room.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, so again, thanks to everybody, Cicely from the Owens Group, and Chris and Grace and everybody here. The tech team.
That's right, the tech team.
Everybody here at the Gateway Film Center. It's always a blast. So, again, she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And this is the Fright Club Podcast.
Stay frightful, my friends.
I'm thinking zombies. What? The undead. Ghouls.